What's up, Dirt Junkies? My son and I are here doing some backpacking along the AT, and we figured along the way we would show you 5 tips for how to stay warm and dry at night no matter what happens on the trail. And the great thing about these tips is that all of them are either free or really, really cheap, but they can still make a massive difference in making sure you are warm, dry, and comfortable at night. If you want to skip ahead to the tips, you can check out the bookmarks below. Otherwise, we'll show you a little bit of the trip along the way. For the first tip, bring separate sleep clothes so that no matter if it rains, you get sweaty, anything else like that on trail, you know you have nice, dry clothes. You don't want to wear whatever you've hiked in to bed as well. On this trip, I brought my nice light 32-degree base layers because I know I wouldn't need anything warmer than that. I did also bring a beanie, a gaiter, gloves, and separate socks as well. What'd you bring, boss?
I brought my Super Mario one-piece pajamas, some socks, and some gloves.
And what you bring for your sleep clothes will probably change depending on the season. Like I said, I brought some long leg, long sleeve base layers, a beanie, gloves, and socks. But if it's summer backpacking, I might just bring an extra pair of underwear and maybe an extra shirt, something like that. But always bring separate sleep clothes because then you know you have dry clothes. Because sleeping dry is the key to sleeping warm.
Yeah.
We are just getting to the top of a little incline, which brings me to our second tip. And that is all of those clothes that you brought for sleeping and your entire sleep system should go in a dry bag. Now, I know I told you these would be cheap, easy, and they are. Too often when people hear dry bag, they think something expensive, maybe even Dyneema. You can get a Dyneema dry bag off of Amazon for $40. But what I use is compactor bags. They're 2.5 mils thick. You can get 40 of them for $20 on Amazon. They're super durable. I usually use them for several trips to keep those clothes for sleeping and your entire sleep system nice and dry no matter what happens. So as I have to do with an incline, I can tell that my back is getting sweaty. That sweat's gonna soak through my pack and get anything that is not in that dry bag wet. So even if there's not any rain in the forecast, I will always put my sleeping clothes, my sleep system, anything else I want to keep dry, maybe my down jacket, in that dry bag. Austin's giving me a little bit of a break, so you can tell I'm breathing heavy. Thanks, boss. And maybe, hopefully, you don't sweat as much as I do, so you don't need to worry about that. And you may rely on a pack cover if it's raining. But a pack cover still leaves your entire back exposed to the rain, the wetness. So if what's in your pack is not in a dry bag, that pack cover is not going to do you any good at all. It'll keep a lot of moisture off the outside of your pack, but things, especially against your body, are still going to get wet. And the great thing about that dry bag is you can use it as sort of a compression sack. The way I like to do it is I put my clothes on the bottom, then my quilt, I put my pillow on top of that, and my sleeping pad, anything else I want to put in there, maybe my puffy jacket. I put that inside my pack, and then I really press down on it, letting a whole bunch of air escape outside of the top of that compactor bag. When I've got it pushed down as much as I can, then I just twist the top, sort of tuck it on the side of the bag so that it doesn't come unraveled. It works really, really well. And then to avoid waste, once that compactor bag is worn out, you can actually just use it as a regular trash bag at your house. So there's literally zero waste, and it's much, much cheaper than those ultralight dry bags you can get from a lot of places. The last thing I'll say is even if you don't get the same ones that I use, I definitely recommend getting white. I used to use black lawn bags that were nice and thick, but you couldn't see anything in them. So get white ones, you can see a lot better. Let's keep working our way to camp, and then we'll share tip number 3. Got a bit of a late start because, you know, work is hard to get away from, so busted out the headlamps. Almost there though, less than a mile to go. What's backpacking without a little bit of hiking in the dark? Here we go. Shelter's just down that way. Oops, sorry buddy.
Almost there.
Almost there.
Alive.
And we're still alive.
This is the David Lesser shelter.
Alright, we set up camp, had dinner, climbed into bed. Now it's movie time. We'll share the next tip in the morning. Our third tip is to always bring a sleeping pad and sleeping bag that's appropriate for the conditions. I brought my Perea 15-degree quilt as well as my Perea Recharge XL. Neither of those are ISO or EN rated, but I've tested them in temperatures much lower than what we're encountering on this trip. My Perea sleeping pad says it has an R value of I think 4.7. I don't think it's actually that high, but as I said, I've actually tested the sleeping pad in lower temperatures. Os, what did you bring?
I brought the Hike and Bike sleeping bag with a comfort rating of 32 degrees.
And what about your sleeping pad?
I brought the Big Agnes Rapide SL,
which has an R value over 4. Always make sure that the sleep system you bring is appropriate for the conditions. That's the only way you can stay warm, no matter how dry you are. What tip is this?
Number 4.
And for our fourth tip, the morning when you wake up, you need to take off all of your warm sleep clothes, change back into what might be a little bit cold because it's been sitting in your tent all night, and put your warm sleep clothes back in your dry bag. You want to make sure these clothes are nice and dry for the next night. So that's the fourth tip. Let's get rid of these backpacks and then we'll come back for the fifth tip. Got to take our shoes off for this last tip because you're going to get back in the tent. And for our fifth tip, you're going to want to try and get rid of any condensation inside your tent. There's a couple different ways you can do this. We got up early to check out the sunrise, and so when we did that, we opened doors on both sides so we get a nice breeze through here to try and dry some of that out. But even though we did that, we're still going to wipe out the inside. To do that, you can use a buff if you're wearing a buff. These are some nice Swedish washcloths. They dry really quick, they're light, and they're really durable, so I like using these. Or you can also use some of these packable wipes that Austin's showing you. Probably seen these before. They're just packed really tight. You just add a drop of water, then they spread out. It works just fine to wipe out the inside of a tent. And then when your cloth is soaked, just kind of wring it out outside of your tent. But even if it doesn't look like there's condensation, feel your tent, and I'd even get a cloth and then wipe it down. So let's wipe the tent down, buddy.
Okay.
You don't have a cloth.
I know.
It only takes a minute, but it will save you a big hassle, and there's often more condensation inside your tent than you think. So take a few minutes, wipe your tent out to get out as much condensation as possible. Then when you set up your tent for the next night, it should be nice and dry. All right, let's finish packing up, hit the trail.
Whoop, whoop. Stop in the name of love.
All right, those are our 5 tips for sleeping dry and warm no matter what happens on trail. And remember, life is better with some dirt in it.
Yeah. Almost there. Yahoo! Whoop, whoop.